Hi, Apartment Therapy. I'm Leecy. Welcome to my 425 square foot studio apartment in Brooklyn. I am a UX designer and I am in the space for about 2 years now. I was always fascinated about the idea of living in a lofty studio. In reality, it's just a concrete box that has taller vertical space than the actual living space. So I had to outsmart it to make it actually feeling loungy without sacrificing the daily uses. From the floor map, you can almost see it's almost like a square. So that made it a little bit challenging in the first place, just to differentiate the functionality of the essential daily activities. So that my space is actually divided into 4 major sections. There is my lounging area, my dining area, my walking area, and resting area. The tools that I learned about sectioning things out are these curtains. It really does magic and it separates the space with ease. And the other thing is about using colors. That was the biggest lesson I learned, because when I first entered the space, I was like, I wanted to make everything as minimal as possible, so all white aesthetics, which turned out to be a mistake. Because in a small space, one of the best things you can do is to create visual contrasts, to create depths, and that actually creates a sense of space rather than try to hide everything or make everything white. So it's an interesting challenge with higher ceilings, because first of all, there's no electricity. Second of all, it's made of concrete. So it's actually really hard to drill holes and it's really expensive to do so. So that I had to be creative in order to hang anything up. So I actually use these string rackets and it goes from this end to the other. And before that, there was so many iterations. I had tension rods, I had a bookshelf that tried to separate the space. And you can see this sconce is actually doing the same thing of separating the space and also create a little bit of a moment here. And then the other thing is this is the Naguchi knockout and from Amazon, that's like $30. And you probably have noticed that I also have different type of light sources that also really contributed to having a bright and very cozy, very airy room, other than when it gets dark and it can get really, really dark and it's harder to light things up. Welcome to my dining zone where I have this table from Facebook Marketplace. It's kind of like postmodern and it has all this interesting colors. So I matched it with a checkered rug to create this more playful look. And as you can see that there are a lot of checkered items here and there because I really like them and it just speaks to my liking. I really enjoy having a dedicated area where I can just sit down and have mindful bites. And then I also have this corner place which serves as a vignette as well as the extension of the kitchen where I can get things heated up here. And then it has some of my mugs collection. I guess you probably noticed that there's the colors that hugs the space because it was during COVID. I had the all white aesthetics, even the floors, I painted it white. So you can imagine in winter, it became a situation I feel like I'm hospitalized. And I decided to really introduce colors to this space. And the first thing I really wanted to have is a sense of nature. So that green was the color. And then I picked a color named Mountain Moss from Benjamin and Moore. It's just beautiful by the sound of it. And then it just worked out perfectly in the space. And it actually pushes the ceiling to be even taller, which is nice. And then it also gives more a very grounded, very calming, hugging effect that I really liked. This is my working zone. And you can see I applied this IKEA wall organization that was supposed to use for the closet, but it actually worked out really well in here and it goes all the way up on the higher end of the ceiling. What I like about it is it gives me a standing desk and also a seating area without having a desk that goes up and down, which I really liked. I also really like this IKEA drawer. And it's actually a really big storage and it keeps it a very sleek, minimal look. And all my tools to help me draw is right here. And it has, I don't know if this is actually messy or not. Or maybe not that. And also have great printer so that I can actually print out some mood boards and I can change it seasonally. And now I'm more like into this colorful, dreamy aesthetics, but sometimes I also change it to some like black and whites, like portraits, things like that. And it gives me the space to like have a splashy moment, and I can change accordingly to adapt to the season. Welcome to my charging pad, which is where I get rest. And then you can see it's a big moment of velvet fabric, which is my favorite fabric. I have a furry friend I have to take care of. Well, he probably takes care of me. Yeah, the secret to velvet is cat actually don't stretch them. So it's actually really practical. At the same time, I love the reflection on the fabric, so it actually creates visual interest. And I applied this dusty mauve color that has a sense of earth. So it's very earthy, grounded, and it gave me a lot of comfort. And I intentionally keep it very minimal because your brain wanted to rest when entering the space. So even though it's a tiny cocoon, but it kind of creates a sensation of a cave where it's like you have nothing to do but just go to bed and get some rest. So this is my kitchen, which I really like. I did a lot of DIY projects in order to make it more personal. The washer/dryer is probably the only thing that's left since I moved in. When I moved in, that was the time I was obsessed with the marble countertops. And then I'm like, oh, I wanted to do this like very minimal, very industrial look, and it's very Scandi. I had to remove all the top cabinets, and then I also actually swapped all the bottom cabinets to drawers, which is actually big help and huge recommendation for those because it really serves the purpose of like maximizing your storage as well as for convenience. It's much easier to access things and then without bending over or creating a lot of inconvenience because things might get cluttered. This is actually a hack. So this is granite. It's not marble because natural marbles cost a fortune. I found a place in Long Island City that sells all type of slabs, including this beautiful granite slab that has like the veins that it reminds me of mountains or landscape, and everything is like purely natural. The team from the shop actually had to come in and then fabricate everything and then measure it to the great details. I had to change the burner in order to make it more minimal, and I feel like I'm one person so that this actually fits my needs. I don't really have to have like a whole functional oven in order to cook, and I love my air dryer, which has 2 drawers, so that it works really well. Inside my cabinets, I use these Lazy Susans, and it's a lifesaver so that I'm able to see all my spice with ease. My tip of maximizing your small storage space in the kitchen is stackables. So I got the stackable dishes from Wayfair. As you can see, I don't have a pantry, so instead I did this. One of the things you notice is like there is this industrial pillar and it's impossible to put holes in it. So in order to create storage space, this is actually from Zara Home. I love how vintage and retro looking it is, and it has this like cute beige color, and then it just like leans towards the pillar. It gives me a cute moment of this is like your little boutique shop. I got this from Target, and this is also one of my best friends in the kitchen. And because it's also a cart, so you can drag it everywhere. It's very convenient when you're cooking and things are all at hand. And it really gives me a sense of happiness when I walk by, so it's totally worth it. One of the things about Entryway is the first impression. When you hit home and you want it to hug you and welcome you. This is probably the favorite corner of this entire apartment. And then I came up with the idea of having a special romantic vignette or like a moment that really personalized the space. And then I learned to break the rules and just to pin on the ceiling. So it feels like this is more cohesive and it creates a sensation that the ceiling is actually taller. This is my closet slash storage space, which I decorated into a inner world of Leecy's. This used to be a blank space, but then I wanted to just have it as multifunctional, so it holds all my collections, all my small stuff that make me happy. So there are 3 things that helped me big time. The IKEA belly bookshelves, which I made them into more of storage shelvings, and then I even attached mirrors inside of it just to create a sense of space, and then they can work as vanity. This wall organization system, it's amazingly versatile, and you can see these drawers, they're the same concept. It's very convenient. The 3rd thing is about these like fabric drawers, if you may, and they're also from IKEA, and they're super cheap, and they hold so much stuff. And then I hide all my towels and scarves and all winter accessories in there, and they stack as well so that it doesn't clutter the space too much. This is my kindergarten style mural drawing, and then you see this is actually my cat, but it's in a flower shape, and it's got my cat's eyes. It's playful. It's almost like everybody has a child within themselves, and this is a moment where you can let them out. I love foxes, and that's why I draw the fox as the main character, and there are some tulips around her. So yeah, I really love this. This is my bathroom. These are acrylic drawers from Muji. There's also my 2 Lego drawers. And then last but not least, there is a wall hanging mirrored closet, which I use to host all my accessories just to keep everything tidy. So you notice that there is a checkered entry before you go into the bathroom. And that was actually the first project I did to this apartment when I decided to introduce colors. I was so tired and bored of the all-white aesthetics, and it didn't really work to my liking. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna introduce colors, and I'll introduce it subtly so that I really like the checkered pattern. It just speaks to my heart. I can't really explain the reasons, and you can see it's a repeated pattern in my space as well. It just makes me really happy when I see them. The biggest thing I learned is you have to experiment with the space in order to get what it really feels like. You can think too many. I have like thousands of pictures in my Pinterest board, but I only would know whether if it works in the space once I introduce it in here. When I think of it, in the past it used to be all white, and then there was like furniture pieces here and there. It's still an ongoing process. You can never really get too comfortable with the space. There's always some needs that you just discovered and you wanted to incorporate that into your design. I think that's the fun part about interior, because it's really a self-discovery journey. Every decision you make, and you become more intentional, and you know what you like and why you like it. And I think that is the most fun part.